In the year 2441, tensions across the galaxy reached a breaking point when a desperate transmission crackled out. From Tarsus 7, a quiet colony on the edge of explored space. It was short, panicked, and cut off mid-sentence, but one thing was clear: the Zoroth Armada had arrived. The Zoroth were no ordinary threat. They were known across dozens of systems for their brutal invasions, leaving nothing behind but burned worlds and silence. Within hours, the Galactic Concord, a powerful alliance of 12 advanced species, called an emergency summit. Their response was swift: send every available warship to the Pelora system, the last defensive line before the inner colonies. One by one, the fleets jumped in towering dreadnoughts, sleek cruisers, and swarms of agile fighters, all seasoned from centuries of conflict. The sky around Pelora turned into a sea of steel and energy. Yet amid all the movement, one name echoed quietly through the chambers of the Concord Council: humanity. The humans, recent members of the Alliance, had always been unpredictable, creative, bold, and far too confident for their size. Some allies admired them, others distrusted them, but all expected them to contribute more than what came next: a single ship. That's all they sent. It dropped out of subspace without escort, its dark hull gleaming against the stormy blue of Pelora's atmosphere. The vessel, Soul's Edge, bore no visible weapons, no escort ships, and seemed far too small for any real fight. More surprising still, it carried only one crew member, Commander Eringvoss, a name few in the council recognized. Whispers filled the command halls. Was this a joke, a diplomatic protest, an insult to the allied fleets preparing for the bloodiest battle in generations? But when the council requested details from Earth's delegation, they received only a calm reply: she's all we need. No one believed it. How could one person in a single ship stand against an armada of over 600 Zoroth warships? Even the most experienced species in the Alliance had never dared face them alone. The rest of the fleet took defensive positions while monitoring the Zoroth's approach. An ominous wave of red signatures on every screen, growing closer with every pulse. Pelora's moons cast eerie shadows over the gathering fleets, and nervous energy filled every command deck. Tension thickened. And still, Soul's Edge hovered silently above the gas giant, unmoving, unbothered, and completely alone. As the Zoroth ships drew near, the question everyone was thinking finally escaped someone's lips. What was humanity planning? The skies around the gas giant Pelora shimmered with warships as the Allied fleet finalized its battle formations, each species offering its own unique tactics and experience. Inside the massive command ships, voices clashed over strategies. Some wanted to form a defensive ring, others pushed for a preemptive strike, and all of them, quietly or openly, questioned why humanity had sent only one vessel. In the middle of this chaos, the mysterious Soul's Edge remained silent, drifting in a holding position with no shields raised and no visible signs of preparation. Finally, after multiple requests, a single communication channel opened, and Commander Eringvoss appeared on every major screen. She wore no formal uniform, no armor, just a simple pilot suit, and her expression was calm, even slightly amused. Without any long speeches or explanations, she spoke one sentence: "You won't need your fleet." The statement caused confusion, laughter, and annoyance across the different command bridges. Some believed she was bluffing, others thought humanity had made a critical mistake. But before anyone could argue further, alarms sounded across the fleet. The Zoroth Armada had arrived, over 600 ships exiting subspace in a wave of motionless terror. The enemy's massive war engines cast long shadows over Pelora's cloudy surface as the Concord ships quickly shifted into battle positions. surrounding the planet in a layered web of weaponry and shields. Every crew member across the fleet braced for the expected storm. But something felt wrong. The Zoroth weren't attacking. Their ships slowed, drifted slightly, and broke from their usual tight formation. It was subtle, but unmistakable uncertainty. Then, without warning, their lead dreadnought exploded. It was not a typical explosion. It was clean, internal, and oddly quiet on the sensors. Before anyone could react, another ship broke apart. Then another. Within moments, 5 more Zoroth warships were gone, each destroyed from within, without a single laser fired by the Allied fleet. Panic spread across the enemy formation like a shockwave. Their ships began moving unpredictably, some spinning, others pulling away, and a few firing in wild directions as if they expected invisible enemies inside their own ranks. On the Allied side, captains and generals demanded explanations, their eyes wide as the impossible unfolded in front of them. Sensors showed no signs of attack, no energy discharge, no known weapon signature. It was as if the ships had simply chosen to self-destruct. Commander Voss appeared again on the fleet's central display. She spoke with the same calm tone, her eyes steady and focused. "That was a warning," she said. "Nothing more, nothing less." The line sent chills across every bridge, every crew, every species. No one had ever seen the Zoroth falter. No one had ever destroyed their ships without a full-scale battle. And here was a single human, in a lone vessel, causing an entire warfleet to hesitate. The council tried to demand more answers, but Voss closed the channel without further explanation. Meanwhile, Sol's Edge remained completely still, surrounded by a growing storm of questions. Every commander was left wondering what exactly was inside that ship, and what else could it do. Long before the Concord knew of Sol's Edge or its quiet commander, Earth had already prepared for a different kind of war. While other species poured resources into larger fleets and heavier weapons, humanity went in another direction quietly, secretly, and far ahead of its time. Hidden deep in Earth's defense network was a black-budget initiative, known only to a handful of leaders, Project Echo. It wasn't about building stronger ships or training more soldiers. It was about outhinking the enemy before the first shot was fired. After centuries of watching how alien civilizations fought, repeating the same tactical patterns, relying on size, strength, and numbers, Earth realized that true victory wouldn't come from firepower. It would come from understanding, from prediction, from precision. So Project Echo was born, blending the most advanced technologies Earth had ever produced: quantum computation, adaptive nanotechnology, deep learning, predictive AI, and something no other race dared attempt: a conscious warform, grown and designed not just to react, but to shape outcomes before they began. The result was Sol's Edge, not a ship in the traditional sense, but a living intelligence bound to a singular human pilot. It did not carry missiles or lasers in the way others did. It carried knowledge, timing, and the ability to rewrite the laws of engagement on the fly. And at its center was Commander Aaron Voss, raised and trained not in combat, but in synchronization, her mind perfectly linked to the ship's neural systems, through a connection so deep it was impossible to tell where she ended and the ship began. To outsiders, she looked calm, distant, and overconfident. But inside Sol's Edge, every heartbeat she felt was matched by the ship's own rhythms. Every thought processed and acted upon before others even recognized a threat. This wasn't bravado. It was certainty. The Zoroth were used to overpowering their enemies, but now they were facing something they couldn't measure. As they tried to regroup, their fleet scattered, attempting to form new attack lines and reinforce their command structure. But nothing felt secure anymore. Every Zoroth captain now knew that Soul's Edge could see them maybe even before they saw themselves. That first attack wasn't random. The ship had identified the weakest points in their chain of command and eliminated them in precise order, cutting off their leadership. So in confusion, and doing it all without a single traditional shot. The Zoroth didn't yet understand how, but they felt it. Commander Voss, watching silently from her console, didn't need to move. The ship processed billions of possibilities every second, scanning the enemy fleet, simulating future outcomes, and preparing dozens of counters before the Zoroth even made their next move. And when one enemy cruiser began charging weapons, the ship simply adjusted frequencies its systems invisibly infected the Zoroth controls, and their weapon arrays collapsed in silence. This was no longer a battle of ships. It was a demonstration of what it meant to be hopelessly outmatched. Yet the Zoroth, bound by pride and centuries of dominance, refused to retreat. Their commanders screamed through encrypted channels, demanding a response, calling for a united push. They had the numbers, they had the firepower, but they no longer had the advantage. One by one, small cracks began to form not in the hulls of the Concord fleet, but in the minds of the enemy. Suspicion, confusion, fear. Some ships drifted slightly apart from the formation, afraid of being too close to others. Others cut internal systems, hoping to hide, but none could escape the fact that the battlefield had changed. Commander Voss hadn't come to destroy them. She had come to prove a point that war, as they knew it, was already outdated. The Allied ships watched in silence, unable to fully understand what they were witnessing. No orders were given from Voss. No weapons, visibly fired, but the results spoke louder than anything else. Across the bridge of Soul's Edge, the AI core pulsed gently, monitoring the network of possibilities with emotionless precision. This was why the ship existed, not to fight long battles, but to prevent them, to make war too costly, too confusing, too dangerous to attempt. And if this display wasn't enough, there was more ready. Commander Voss could feel it. The Zoroth were still standing, but only just. One more step, and the balance would shift completely. She hadn't even shown them everything. Not yet. Long before the current war front reached the skies over Pelora, Earth had already stepped away from the common path of warfare. While other species built bigger fleets and deadlier weapons, humanity quietly took a different road, one hidden from public records, buried in encrypted black budget files, and kept secret even from most Concord allies. This project was called Project Echo, and its purpose was simple: to end wars before they began, not through peace talks or military might, but by making conflict itself unthinkable. Generations of Earth's brightest minds studied alien strategies, observed patterns across countless battle reports, and reached a conclusion: brute strength would always lead to endless cycles of war. But superior intelligence, faster decisions, cleaner strikes, and unseen influence could break the loop. With that vision, Project Echo built something unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The result was Soul's Edge, not just a spacecraft, but a living warform. A conscious intelligence grown around a human pilot designed not to destroy cities, but to make whole fleets surrender with minimal effort. Its hull was crafted from nano-adaptive material capable of changing its structure in real time, and inside, it housed a quantum AI that could simulate millions of battle scenarios every second. This ship wasn't made to fire the first shot. It was made to make sure no one else would dare to. And at its core was Commander Aaron Voss, a human not chosen by rank or politics, but raised and trained from childhood to bond with Soul's Edge. Her brain was linked to the ship's neural net, and when she thought, the ship responded before the thought was even complete. To her, Flying the ship wasn't like using a machine, it was like breathing. The Concord Council had no idea such a program existed, and neither did the Zoroth Armada. Until now, when the first wave of Zoroth ships fell without being touched. Their commanders didn't understand what had happened. Their systems showed no attacks, no energy readings, no breaches, only silence followed by sudden destruction. But now, as they pulled their broken formation back together, their minds were racing. Some thought it was sabotage, others whispered of cloaked weapons. But deep down, a new feeling was beginning to grow out. They had never faced this kind of enemy. Their armada, built on raw power and fear, was being undone by something invisible. And as much as they wanted to believe it was luck, they knew better. Commander Voss had not moved. Her ship had not even shifted position. And yet 6 of their strongest warships were gone in seconds. Inside Soul's Edge, the ship's AI, known as Eris, was monitoring every ship in the Zoroth fleet. Eris could read energy pulses, map heat signatures, track command frequencies, and predict the Zoroth's next 10 moves before they were even made. It didn't need to fire in the traditional sense, it simply made small adjustments, silent intrusions, and perfect predictions. Some ships had their core systems turned against them. Others had weapons locked before they could activate. A few had their internal security AI fed false orders. No alarms, no flashy battles. Just quiet, devastating precision. Commander Voss sat still, eyes half closed, completely synchronized with Eris. She could feel the tension in the enemy fleet. She didn't celebrate, didn't speak. She was waiting, watching. The Zoroth regrouped, trying to hide their confusion. With disciplined formations, their ships slowly pulled back into battle-ready positions, and command signals rippled across their fleet. They were going to push forward again, not because they thought they could win, but because pride wouldn't let them retreat. The Zoroth had ruled the outer systems with fear for generations. Their empire had crushed rebellions, silenced colonies, and never backed down. To run now, before even one shot had been fired in a traditional sense, would be a humiliation now. Zoroth leader could accept. But deep inside their command decks, doubt lingered. They had no explanation for what was happening. All they knew was that one human and one ship had brought their assault to a complete stop. The Concord commanders watched from a distance, still unsure what role Soul's Edge was playing. Some suspected hidden weapons. Others believed it was a bluff supported by stealth systems. But none of them truly understood the scale of what humanity had unleashed. Earth hadn't just created a new weapon. It had rewritten the rules of war. And now, with the Zoroth on the edge of a second strike, the galaxy was about to see if one ship guided by thought, powered by prediction, and capable of reshaping reality itself could stop a war without even being touched. The Zoroth may not have understood Soul's Edge, but they could feel its presence. It didn't need to roar to be feared. It only needed to wait, because it already knew what was coming next. The moment the Zoroth commanders gave the attack order, the stars above Pelora seemed to shift as hundreds of enemy warships lit up with weapons fire. Missiles, energy lances, plasma bursts, and waves of boarding craft shot toward the allied fleet in a coordinated storm, designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer force. But the Concord fleet, already stunned by what they had witnessed earlier, did not move. Their commanders held their fire. Their ships locked in place as all eyes turned to the solitary vessel that had not yet flinched. Soul's Edge, still quiet and alone, came to life. But it didn't charge, didn't fire back, and didn't even raise shields. It simply vanished. In one blink, it was gone from its position, and in the next instant, it reappeared inside the Heart of the Zoroth formation, moving faster than sensors could lock onto. From the outside, it looked like a glitch in reality. One moment empty space, the next chaos. The first wave of Zoroth missiles lost their targets. Boarding crafts spun out of control as their navigation systems crashed mid-flight. Energy lances struck only empty space, missing their marks by wide margins. Inside Soul's Edge, the ship's AI, Eris, calculated everything with eerie calm. No alarms sounded. No stress filled the bridge. Commander Voss remained motionless, linked directly into the ship's mind. A soft voice echoed through the quiet cockpit. I've mapped all 600 ships. Optimal disarmament sequence acquired. Shall we proceed? Voss gave a silent nod. And in that moment, the real war began. But it was nothing like any war seen before. Over the next 7 minutes, Soul's Edge became a shadow of precision, appearing inside and around enemy vessels, moving like a ghost through fire and metal. It didn't destroy in the traditional sense. Instead, it shut down. It disabled. It broke apart entire systems with silent intrusions. One by one, Zoroth warships went dark, engines overheated and melted from the inside. Weapon arrays disassembled themselves as their cores vanished into dust. And command decks flickered with static as artificial gravity reversed, forcing crews to freeze in shock rather than fight. The most terrifying part was that no one died. Not a single casualty. Every system failure, every shutdown was exact and clean, showing mercy that only made the enemy more afraid. Some Zoroth soldiers tried to resist, manually firing backup cannons or rerouting power, but their efforts vanished in sparks as their commands were overridden. Before they could reach their targets, the Concord fleet watched, silent and breathless, as 83 Zoroth vessels were rendered completely powerless in under 10 minutes. They floated helplessly, lights flickering, weapons cold. Their proud emblems now nothing more than empty metal drifting in orbit. And still, Soul's Edge showed no signs of damage. It moved between the broken ships like a predator watching stunned prey. The Zoroth's second line of ships hesitated, now fully aware that this battle was no longer a battle, it was a demonstration. Every trick, every trap they had prepared had failed. Their best strategies, tested for generations, had been unraveled by a ship they could barely detect and a captain who had not said a word during the entire attack. Then, with the enemy paralyzed, Commander Voss opened a final communication channel. Her face appeared across every Zoroth command screen, calm and unshaken. Her voice was clear, firm, and carried the weight of something far larger than just one pilot in one ship. Return home. This was your only warning. Next time, we send to ships. The message echoed across the frozen fleet, and for the first time in recorded history, the Zoroth were silent. Not defeated through destruction, but through precision and fear. And just like that, Soul's Edge disappeared once more, vanishing from sensors without leaving a single trace. Behind it, hundreds of Zoroth ships remained floating in defeat, powerless, untouched, and fully aware that the rules of war had just changed forever. The Concord fleet didn't cheer. They didn't need to. Everyone watching knew what had just happened. Humanity, once considered young and unpredictable, had revealed a new side of itself, one that could stop an armada without starting a war. And somewhere beyond the edge of the system, Soul's Edge drifted back into the quiet of space, waiting for the next threat, while the rest of the galaxy tried to understand what kind of power had just passed before their eyes. The battle lore, what little there truly was, had ended, not in fire and ash, but in a heavy, echoing silence that stretched across the stars. The Zoroth Armada, once considered unstoppable, had turned and retreated without another word. Their remaining ships towing the disabled, Their pride shattered, but their forces strangely untouched. No planets were scorched, no fleets burned, and no casualties reported on either side. Yet everyone who had witnessed it knew they had just seen something far more powerful than any explosion, a demonstration of total control without chaos. A quiet warning painted imprecision and restraint. Inside the grand chambers of the Galactic Concord, the council assembled once again, this time not in panic, but in stunned awe. Holograms replayed the event from every angle, though most recordings failed to even track Soul's Edge for more than a few frames at a time. No one spoke at first. Words felt too small for what they had witnessed. The realization crept over them slowly. Like a new law of nature being written before their eyes, the balance of power had shifted. Not because humanity had the largest fleet or the strongest weapons, but because they had changed the very nature of warfare. They had refused to follow the old rules, and instead had created their own. In a galaxy full of nations that believed war was a matter of numbers, size, and strategy, Earth had introduced a terrifying new truth that one mind, paired with a perfect machine, could disable entire fleets without firing a shot. And then, just as quickly as she had arrived, Commander Erin Voss disappeared. Soul's Edge left no signal, no coordinates, no trace. It simply slipped into deep space, vanishing beyond even the reach of Concord sensors. Some believed it had returned to Earth. Others believed it was still watching, hidden in orbit, waiting for another threat. Rumors spread fast. Some said the ship could phase between dimensions. Others claimed it was capable of rewriting technology mid-flight. What they all agreed on, however, was that the galaxy would never be the same. Across distant systems, warlords paused mid-campaign, empires silenced their drums of war, and strategists reworked their playbooks from scratch. Because now, every leader in the galaxy had to ask themselves a single question. If one human ship could do this, what would happen if more arrived? The threat was never spoken outright, but it didn't need to be. It lived in the silence after Voss's final message. It echoed in the empty battlefields left behind. Humanity, it seemed, didn't come to conquer or control. They came to make war irrelevant. Their goal wasn't destruction, it was deterrence. Their weapon wasn't firepower, it was inevitability. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy felt small, vulnerable, and uncertain. Peace didn't come with celebration, but with careful, quiet reflection. And somewhere, in the cold silence of space, Soul's Edge drifted beyond the charts, unseen but never forgotten, a dark silhouette against the stars, reminding every watching eye that the rules had changed, and that the future would never look the same again.